Imagine driving your brand new Silverado or Tahoe, feeling confident in your investment, until the engine suddenly shuts down without warning, leaving you stranded in the middle of the road. No power, no acceleration, and no idea what went wrong. But what if I told you this isn't just bad luck? Over 877,000 GM trucks and SUVs are now under federal investigation for catastrophic engine failures. This issue has left thousands of owners with massive repair bills, total engine replacements, and the worst part, GM still hasn't taken full responsibility. So what's really causing these breakdowns? How bad is the financial fallout? And most importantly, could this lead to one of the biggest recalls in GM's history? Stick around because this could be the biggest automotive scandal in years, and if you own a GM vehicle, you need to hear this. What's happening? Reports of catastrophic engine failures in General Motors' most popular trucks and SUVs have been piling up, and now the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has stepped in to investigate. The investigation covers over 877,000 vehicles, including the Chevrolet Silverado, Tahoe, GMC Sierra, Yukon, and Cadillac Escalade, all built between the years 2019 and 2024. The primary concern, sudden engine failures linked to the 6.2-liter L87 V8 engine. Owners have reported bearing failures, excessive oil consumption, and complete engine shutdowns with little to no warning. This issue is not just an inconvenience, it is a potential safety hazard. Engine failures at highway speeds leave drivers unable to accelerate or even pull over safely, increasing the risk of accidents. With such a massive number of affected vehicles on the road, the stakes are higher than ever. If the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration determines that these failures are due to a defect, General Motors could face one of the largest recalls in its history, costing billions of dollars. But how did General Motors get to this point? To understand the severity of this crisis, we need to take a closer look at the engine itself and what went wrong. The root cause. At the heart of the problem is General Motors' L87 6.2-liter V8 engine, a flagship powertrain designed to deliver both high performance and fuel efficiency. On paper, it sounds perfect. Direct injection, variable valve timing, and dynamic fuel management to optimize power and fuel economy. However, in practice, this engine has been anything but reliable. One of the major issues plaguing this engine is excessive oil consumption. Owners report that their vehicles burn through oil at an alarming rate, often without any warning from the dashboard oil monitoring system. This lack of proper oil circulation leads to internal damage, with bearings wearing out prematurely and, in extreme cases, engine rods punching through the engine block. Another key suspect in these failures is General Motors' dynamic fuel management system, which deactivates specific cylinders to improve fuel efficiency. While this technology is meant to reduce fuel consumption, it introduces significant wear and tear on the engine's internal components. When the system malfunctions, oil circulation becomes inconsistent, leading to increased friction, overheating, and eventual failure. The problem is not limited to just a few faulty engines. Reports suggest that these issues are widespread, affecting thousands of vehicles across multiple model years. Despite these alarming failure rates, General Motors has yet to acknowledge a systemic defect in its design. Instead, many owners are left footing the bill for costly repairs or total engine replacements. With such fundamental flaws in the engine's design, it was only a matter of time before General Motors owners started speaking out about their experiences. Owners' frustration. For many General Motors owners, what started as an exciting truck or SUV purchase quickly turned into an expensive headache. Thousands of reports have surfaced detailing instances of sudden engine failure, leaving drivers with little recourse other than costly repairs or legal battles. One Silverado owner shared that his engine failed at just 33,000 miles, leaving him with a repair bill exceeding $20,000. Another Sierra driver reported experiencing 2 engine failures within 2 years, despite following the manufacturer's maintenance recommendations. Social media platforms, online forums, and dedicated General Motors truck groups have become a gathering place for frustrated owners sharing their horror stories. The common theme? Unexpected failures, massive repair costs, and little help from the manufacturer. Many owners have reported waiting months for replacement engines due to nationwide back orders, further adding to their frustration. To make matters worse, some dealerships have refused to honor warranties, arguing that oil consumption issues do not necessarily indicate an underlying defect. This has forced many owners to pay out of pocket for repairs, despite their vehicles still being relatively new. With the rising number of complaints, legal experts are already exploring the possibility of class action lawsuits against General Motors. The pressure is mounting, and the automaker will not be able to ignore these concerns for much longer. With customer frustration boiling over, regulatory agencies like the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had no choice but to step in and launch a formal investigation. NHTSA's investigation. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's investigation into General Motors engine failures marks a turning point in this ongoing crisis. The agency has received nearly 40 formal complaints regarding sudden engine shutdowns and catastrophic mechanical failures. However, industry experts believe the true number of affected owners could be much higher, as many drivers do not report their issues to government agencies. The focus of the investigation is to determine whether these failures stem from a fundamental defect in the L87 V8 engine. If a manufacturing flaw is confirmed, General Motors could be forced into a large-scale recall requiring expensive repairs or engine replacements. The financial impact would be staggering, with estimates suggesting the company could face costs reaching into the billions. However, a recall is not guaranteed. Automakers often push back against government-mandated recalls due to the enormous financial burden they create. Instead, General Motors may attempt a less costly approach, such as extended warranties or selective goodwill repairs. But will that be enough to restore customer confidence? With an investigation underway and General Motors under immense pressure, the question now is whether the company will step up and take responsibility or attempt to downplay the crisis. The safety risks of engine failure. The growing number of catastrophic engine failures in GM's full-size trucks and SUVs is more than just a mechanical issue. It is a serious safety hazard. Thousands of drivers have reported sudden loss of power, which can be particularly dangerous at high speeds during highway merges or in busy intersections. For many, the experience has been nothing short of terrifying. When an engine seizes, the vehicle loses motive power, meaning the driver can no longer accelerate or maintain speed. In some cases, power steering and braking functions are also compromised, making it difficult to control the vehicle. Imagine merging onto a highway, only for your truck to suddenly stall, leaving you helpless in the middle of fast-moving traffic. For families using these vehicles for daily commutes, road trips, or even towing, the risk is even greater. Drivers have reported that their Silverado, Tahoe, Sierra, and Yukon models have suffered engine seizures with little to no warning. Many of these incidents occur with vehicles that are relatively new, some with fewer than 50,000 miles on the odometer. Mechanics diagnosing these issues often find that bearing failure, oil starvation, and cylinder deactivation malfunctions are the root cause. The problem is not isolated. It is a widespread defect affecting hundreds of thousands of vehicles. Beyond the physical dangers, these failures have financial consequences for owners. When a vehicle breaks down unexpectedly, it leads to towing expenses, expensive repairs, and time spent without reliable transportation. Some owners have been forced to pay thousands of dollars for engine replacements, only for the same issue to occur again. Others, especially those with vehicles just outside of the warranty period, are left with no financial relief from GM. Industry safety experts argue that GM must act before a major accident or fatality occurs. If one of the largest truck manufacturers in the world continues to ignore a problem of this magnitude, it will not just damage its reputation, it could lead to serious legal consequences. Beyond the safety risks, the financial consequences for GM could be catastrophic. The billion-dollar problem. If GM is forced into a full-scale recall, the cost of repairs and compensation could reach billions of dollars. This situation is not just a public relations nightmare, it is a financial disaster in the making. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has already launched a formal investigation into the issue, and if they determine that a recall is necessary, GM will be required to replace or repair hundreds of thousands of affected vehicles. With nearly 900,000 vehicles under scrutiny, the cost of a mass recall could quickly spiral out of control. For reference, past large-scale recalls by other automakers have resulted in staggering financial losses. When Ford faced a recall crisis with defective transmissions, the company had to spend billions in repairs and legal settlements. If GM follows the same path, the financial burden could be one of the biggest in its history. Adding to the financial strain, lawsuits are already emerging as angry owners demand compensation. Some customers have been forced to replace their engines multiple times, with repair bills reaching upwards of $20,000. Others have reported out-of-pocket expenses exceeding $10,000 because GM refused to cover repairs under warranty extensions. These legal battles could cost millions in settlements, on top of the potential recall expenses. One of the biggest risks for GM is delay tactics. If the company drags its feet, the costs could become even greater. Ignoring the problem for too long could lead to class action lawsuits, federal penalties, and long-term damage to consumer trust. If customers feel abandoned, they will take their business elsewhere, and once brand loyalty is broken, it is difficult to rebuild. And as GM struggles to contain the crisis, competitors are stepping in to take advantage. Rivals are capitalizing on GM's failure. While GM faces backlash from angry customers, competitors are seizing the opportunity to win over disillusioned truck and SUV buyers. Companies like Ford, Toyota, and Ram have been quick to emphasize their reliability, durability, and commitment to customer satisfaction. Ford, GM's biggest domestic rival, has heavily marketed the reliability of its F-Series trucks in recent months. The Ford F-150 remains America's best-selling truck, and Ford has been highlighting its proven V8 powertrains as a direct contrast to GM's troubled L87 engine. Ford executives have even referenced GM's engine failures in internal marketing discussions, indicating that they see this crisis as a way to gain more market share. Toyota has also taken advantage of GM's missteps. When Toyota's twin-turbo V6 engine in the Tundra faced camshaft issues, the company immediately acknowledged the problem, extended warranties, and provided free repairs. This proactive approach has kept Toyota customers loyal. Many former GM truck owners, frustrated with GM's lack of transparency, are now considering the Toyota Tundra or the Ram 1500 as alternatives. Ram, a brand known for its powerful Hemi V8s, has also seen an increase in interest from former GM owners. Unlike GM, Ram has not suffered from widespread engine failures in its latest models, making it a tempting alternative for buyers who prioritize reliability. The competition is fierce, and GM's refusal to properly address the crisis is only helping its rivals gain ground. The longer GM delays action, the more customers it will lose to competitors who are offering reliability, better customer support, and fewer mechanical concerns. But while external competitors are taking advantage, GM's internal struggles may be even more damaging. GM's reputation crisis, a brand at risk. For decades, GM's trucks and SUVs were considered the gold standard in American-built durability. Models like the Silverado and Yukon built a loyal customer base that spanned generations. But that reputation is now crumbling, and the fallout may be irreversible if GM does not act quickly. Loyal GM owners are losing faith, and word-of-mouth damage spreads rapidly in the digital age. Automotive forums, social media pages, and YouTube videos are filled with horror stories from frustrated GM customers. The more these stories circulate, the harder it becomes for GM to repair its image. GM's slow response to this crisis has only made matters worse. Instead of proactively addressing the issue, the company has taken a defensive approach, refusing to issue a recall or provide full transparency about the problem. This lack of corporate accountability is causing many to question whether GM can still be trusted. If GM does not take swift action, it could permanently damage its standing in the highly competitive truck and SUV market. Once a company loses its reputation for reliability, regaining it is an uphill battle. The automaker must act now to prevent this crisis from spiraling completely out of control. And this reputation damage is having an impact where it hurts most: resale values and dealership sales. The impact on resale value and dealer confidence. The growing crisis surrounding GM's 6.2-liter L87 V8 engine is directly affecting resale values and dealer confidence. Traditionally, GM trucks and SUVs have maintained strong resale value due to their reputation for durability and power. However, with widespread reports of engine failures, oil consumption issues, and potential recalls, used GM trucks are no longer seen as reliable long-term investments. Dealerships are already feeling the impact. With thousands of affected vehicles still sitting on lots, many dealers are struggling to move inventory. Buyers are hesitant to invest in vehicles that could require expensive engine repairs or even complete replacements within just a few years of ownership. This has led to steep price cuts and increased incentives as dealers attempt to offload affected vehicles before the problem worsens. Market analysts have already observed a decline in used GM truck prices, particularly for Silverado and Sierra models equipped with the L87 engine. Compared to their Ford and Ram counterparts, these vehicles are seeing a greater drop in resale value, signaling a loss of consumer trust in GM's V8 lineups. If GM does not take swift action to address these concerns, the situation will only worsen. Dealerships cannot afford to sit on unsold inventory for extended periods, and buyers are increasingly turning to competitors like Ford and Toyota, which have avoided such high-profile engine failures. Despite growing concerns, GM's response to the crisis has been underwhelming at best. Denial and delays. As the crisis unfolds, GM's handling of the situation has been heavily criticized by industry experts, customers, and dealership networks. Rather than acknowledging the problem and taking proactive measures, GM has largely remained silent, issuing no widespread recalls or official admissions of fault. Instead, affected owners are forced to battle for partial repair coverage. While some customers have received goodwill repairs, others have been told they must pay out of pocket for new engines costing upwards of $15,000. This inconsistent response has only fueled frustration and mistrust among loyal GM buyers. Compared to other automakers that have handled engine failures in the past, GM's reactive approach stands in stark contrast. Toyota and Ford, in similar situations, took decisive steps to reassure their customers by extending warranties and compensating affected owners. Meanwhile, GM continues to downplay the severity of the issue, hoping to avoid the financial burden of a massive recall. This lack of action is already harming GM's reputation, not only with individual customers, but also with dealerships. Many GM dealers are now questioning the company's long-term commitment to quality as they struggle to sell vehicles that consumers are hesitant to buy. If GM does not take stronger action soon, it risks alienating its most loyal customers and permanently damaging its credibility in the truck and SUV market. If GM doesn't take meaningful action soon, the future of its V8 engines could be in jeopardy. The future of GM's V8 engines. The failure of the 6.2-liter L87 V8 engine could mark the beginning of the end for GM's traditional V8 engines. As GM faces mounting pressure to resolve this crisis, industry insiders speculate whether the company will shift away from internal combustion engines entirely in favor of electric powertrains. The Silverado EV and Sierra EV are already in development, and GM is positioning itself as a leader in electric vehicle technology. However, the question remains, will customers trust GM to deliver reliable vehicles again? After this engine failure scandal, many buyers may be hesitant to adopt new technology from a company that failed to protect the reliability of its traditional engines. If GM intends to continue producing V8 powered trucks and SUVs, it will need to redesign its engine platform entirely. That could mean abandoning cylinder deactivation technology, which has been blamed for excessive oil consumption and bearing failures, or introducing a more durable, long-lasting V8 alternative that prioritizes reliability over fuel efficiency. In the meantime, GM may be forced to extend warranties or replace defective engines at no cost to customers in order to rebuild trust. If the company does not take these steps, buyers may permanently shift to Ford, Toyota, or Ram, companies that have historically handled mechanical failures with greater transparency and accountability. But addressing the engine problem is only part of the solution. GM also has to win back customers. What GM must do to regain trust? Winning back consumer confidence will require bold action from GM. The company can no longer afford to downplay or ignore the problem, as every day it delays action, more customers defect to competitors. To restore trust, GM must take the following steps immediately. GM must announce a widespread recall or extended warranty program. Anything less than a full commitment to repairing or replacing affected engines will be seen as an attempt to dodge responsibility. If Toyota and Ford were willing to extend warranties during their respective crises, GM must do the same to prove it values customer loyalty. Then, GM needs to compensate customers who have already paid for expensive engine repairs. Many affected owners have spent thousands of dollars out of pocket only to have their vehicles fail again within a few years. Reimbursing these customers is not just the right thing to do, it is necessary to prevent legal action and further damage to GM's brand reputation. General Motors must increase transparency about its internal quality control processes. This includes publicly acknowledging the flaws in the L87 engine, explaining what went wrong, and outlining specific engineering improvements to prevent future issues. Consumers are far more likely to trust a company that admits to mistakes and learns from them rather than one that continues to evade responsibility. GM must strengthen its dealership support network. Many customers have reported frustrating experiences with dealerships refusing to acknowledge engine problems or charging excessive fees for repairs. GM must ensure that all dealers follow a uniform policy, offering fair treatment and consistent solutions to affected customers. If GM fails to take these steps, the damage to its reputation could become permanent. The truck and SUV market is fiercely competitive, and if GM does not act quickly, buyers will move on to brands that prioritize reliability and customer satisfaction. As GM scrambles to fix its issues, history offers some important lessons from automakers that have faced similar crises. Toyota's engine crisis. Toyota, one of the most respected automakers in the world, faced its own engine crisis with the twin-turbo V6 in the Toyota Tundra. Reports surfaced of camshaft failures that left some owners stranded, much like what is happening with GM's V8 engines. However, Toyota's response was vastly different from GM's. Instead of denying the issue or delaying action, Toyota quickly acknowledged the problem and extended warranties for affected customers. The company worked with dealerships to ensure owners received repairs with minimal out-of-pocket costs. Toyota also made internal engineering adjustments to prevent the issue from reoccurring in future models. This level of proactive response helped contain the damage before it could spiral out of control. While some customers were understandably frustrated, Toyota's transparency and willingness to fix the issue ultimately protected its reputation. Rather than losing market share, the brand maintained customer loyalty because owners knew Toyota stood behind its products. But not all automakers have handled engine failures this well. Hyundai and Kia's experience was far worse. Hyundai and Kia's engine recall disaster. Hyundai and Kia's Theta, two engine failures became one of the largest recall nightmares in automotive history. These engines, found in millions of vehicles, suffered from oil flow problems, premature wear, and even spontaneous fires. Unlike Toyota, Hyundai and Kia initially resisted addressing the issue, claiming that failures were isolated incidents rather than systemic defects. As lawsuits began to pile up, regulators stepped in, forcing Hyundai and Kia to issue a massive recall. This failure to act quickly led to widespread consumer frustration and long-term brand damage. To make matters worse, Hyundai and Kia's early fixes were inadequate, leading to repeat failures that left customers stranded yet again. Eventually, Hyundai and Kia were forced to extend warranties, offer full engine replacements, and compensate affected owners. However, the damage to their reputation was already done. Even today, many consumers remain hesitant to trust Hyundai and Kia engines, and the brands are still working to rebuild confidence. Meanwhile, GM's closest American rival has faced its own share of quality disasters, and serves as a cautionary tale for what happens when problems are ignored for too long. Ford's transmission nightmare. Ford's power-shift transmission scandal is a prime example of how ignoring a problem can backfire spectacularly. Found in millions of Ford Focus and Ford Fiesta models, the power-shift transmission was marketed as an advanced dual-clutch system that improved fuel economy. However, it suffered from jerky acceleration, hesitation, and outright transmission failure. Ford's response to the crisis was a textbook example of what not to do. The company denied widespread problems, continued selling defective vehicles, and only acted when lawsuits and government pressure became overwhelming. Customers who had already paid for expensive transmission repairs received little to no compensation, and Ford's reluctance to take responsibility led to class action lawsuits that cost the company billions. The power-shift transmission scandal damaged Ford's reputation for years and drove customers to competitors. Even today, many buyers refuse to consider Ford small cars because of the lingering effects of this quality control disaster. So can GM turn this crisis into an opportunity, or will it follow in Ford's footsteps? The final verdict: will GM recover or collapse? GM now stands at a critical crossroads. The 6.2-liter L-Righty-7 V8 engine failure crisis has shaken consumer confidence, hurt resale values, and put GM dealerships in a difficult position. The company must decide whether it will take bold, corrective action or continue to downplay the issue and hope it fades away. If the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration forces a recall, it could be one of the most expensive in GM's history, potentially costing billions. Even if no official recall is issued, the damage is already being felt in the truck and SUV market, where competitors like Ford, Toyota, and Ram are capitalizing on GM's weaknesses. However, there is still time for GM to turn this crisis into an opportunity. If the company extends warranties, compensates affected customers, and takes full responsibility, it could salvage its reputation. GM's leadership needs to acknowledge the problem, reassure customers, and provide lasting solutions, not just temporary fixes. The future of GM's V8 powered trucks and SUVs depends on how the company handles this crisis. If it acts now, it can restore trust and remain competitive in the market, but if it continues to delay and deny, it risks losing customers permanently. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think GM will own up to its mistakes and fix this issue? Or will it continue to deny responsibility until it's too late? Have you or someone you know been affected by this engine failure crisis? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.